The alpha's bargain was supposed to be simple: a pack's blood debt, a worthless daughter who couldn't shift, a ruthless alpha known for executing his enemies. She was the only wolf in her pack who couldn't transform, treated like dirt, mocked by her own family. So when they needed to pay their debt to the most feared alpha in the north, they sent her. Everyone expected her to die within a week, but the monster in the mountains didn't kill her. Instead, he discovered her darkest secret. She wasn't broken. She was sealed. Inside her slept an ancient power so dangerous, it was locked away as a baby. And the only way to unlock it without destroying everything? A true mate's bond. Now the alpha who was supposed to execute her must seduce her, while she discovers that the only person who ever kept her safe is the monster everyone warned her about. But her pack didn't give her a way to pay a debt. They planted her as a weapon. Will his touch free her power, or will her awakening destroy them both? The rain pelted the metal cage, creating a rhythmic drumming that matched the desperate pounding of Elena's heart. Each bump in the road sent sharp jolts through her body, the rough rope cutting into her wrists, leaving angry red marks against her pale skin. She kept her head down, years of conditioning forcing her to appear smaller, less noticeable, a survival technique she'd perfected during her years as a servant in her own pack's house. Around her, the pack members moved with a cold, calculated efficiency. They weren't just transporting her, they were disposing of her. Elena could hear the low murmurs, the occasional cruel chuckle. Her enhanced hearing caught fragments of conversations that confirmed her worst fears. Marcus was always clear about what would happen if she couldn't shift, one guard muttered. Another responded, "Northern Ridge doesn't take kindly to weak wolves. She'll be lucky if they just kill her quickly." Elena's wolf stirred inside her, a quiet defiance rising despite her outward submission. She might look defeated, but something deep within her refused to break completely. The memories of 23 years of abuse flickered through her mind, the constant reminders that she was worthless, defective, a burden to the Blackstone pack. Her sister Vera's smirking face replayed in her memory. Always perfect. Always the favored child. Vera had watched Elena's public denouncement with a mixture of contempt and triumph, enjoying every moment of her sister's humiliation. The pack gathered around, their collective judgment heavy and suffocating. Alpha Marcus had been particularly cruel during the morning ceremony. His words rang in her ears. "A daughter who cannot shift is no daughter of mine. She is a defect that threatens our bloodline's strength. The Northern Ridge will deal with her as they see fit." The truck's suspension groaned as it navigated the muddy forest roads. Rain streaked down the metal cage, creating blurry lines that matched the uncertainty of Elena's future. She had heard stories about the Northern Ridge Pack. They were known for their brutality, for solving problems with swift, merciless efficiency. This wasn't just exile. This was a calculated execution. Elena's fingers, despite being bound, traced the subtle markings on her skin, ancient symbols her father had used to suppress her true nature. She could feel them, like cold brands restricting her inner wolf. Something about those markings felt wrong. Not just restrictive, but fundamentally opposed to her true self. The truck hit another pothole, and Elena was jolted against the cage's metal bars. Pain erupted where her skin made contact, but she made no sound. Showing weakness had been beaten out of her years ago. Her mind drifted to the whispers she'd overheard about her birth, how her mother had died bringing her into the world, how her father had blamed her from the moment she drew her first breath, how she had been marked and sealed, prevented from ever experiencing the full transformation that was every werewolf's birthright. Yet beneath the fear and resignation, a tiny spark of something else flickered. Not hope, exactly. More like a quiet, burning determination. They might be sending her to her death, but Elena was done being their victim. The truck continued its relentless journey, carrying its trapped passenger toward an uncertain fate. The rain continued to fall, washing away the dust of the Blackstone Pack's territory, marking the beginning of an unknown journey. The truck's engine growled to a halt, the sudden silence more oppressive than the previous rumble. Elena kept her eyes down, but her wolf senses were hyper-alert. The air felt charged, electric with tension. Outside the cage, she could hear the soft pad of massive paws, the low growls that spoke of territorial predators. Massive wolves materialized between the trees, their eyes glowing like embers in the misty forest darkness. These weren't ordinary wolves. They were sentinels, each one larger than a horse, their muscles rippling beneath thick fur. Their gazes locked onto the transport, unblinking and predatory. A hush fell over the Blackstone Pack members. Even the guards who had been so confident during the journey now shifted uneasily. Something was approaching, something that made the very air feel heavy and dangerous. Then he emerged. Alpha Kalen Frost stepped from the shadows like a living nightmare. He wasn't just walking, he was moving with a predatory grace that defied human movement. Dressed in black tactical gear that hugged his muscular frame, he looked more like a weapon than a man. His ice-blue eyes scanned the scene with a coldness that could freeze blood. Beside him, Dmitri, his beta, moved with military precision. Where Kalen radiated raw, dangerous power, Dmitri represented calculated control. His hand rested casually near a weapon, a silent reminder of the violence they could unleash in an instant. Kalen circled Elena's cage, each step deliberate. He wasn't just examining her. He was assessing her like prey. His wolf prowled just beneath his skin, visible in the way his muscles coiled with restrained energy, in the way his gaze seemed to look through her rather than at her. Dimitri's voice cut through the silence, clinical and precise. 3 northern wolves murdered in the eastern border dispute. 2 males, 1 female, all young, all unmated. He pulled out a document, his fingers holding it with a controlled anger. Blood debt requires compensation. The Blackstone Pack claims this female as their offering. Elena remained motionless, years of training forcing her to appear small, insignificant. But beneath her servant's exterior, something ancient stirred. Her marked skin prickled, sensing the power surrounding her. Kalen stopped directly in front of her cage. Up close, he was more terrifying. Scars traced his exposed skin, not marks of weakness but evidence of survived battles. His presence was a physical force, pushing against her like a winter wind. When he spoke, his voice matched his appearance, cold, sharp, devastating. Is this what the Blackstone Pack considers adequate payment? The words weren't a question. They were a judgment. The moment Kalen's hand wrapped around Elena's arm, everything changed. Electricity crackled between them. Not metaphorical electricity, but a literal, physical spark that made both of them gasp. Elena's body went rigid, her muscles tensing as an unexpected warmth began spreading from where his fingers touched her skin. For the first time in her life, she felt something other than the cold emptiness where her wolf should have been. Kalen's reaction was visceral and immediate. His wolf surged forward inside him, clawing at his consciousness with a primal recognition. Something ancient stirred beneath Elena's marked skin. Something that made his wolf go completely still, then tremble with an intensity he'd never experienced. His ice-blue eyes flickered, the color shifting and dancing with golden light. The transformation was subtle but profound, signaling a deep, instinctual response that went beyond rational thought. Dmitri, standing just behind Kalen, noticed the change instantly. His hand moved subtly toward a weapon, sensing something was different. "Alpha," he whispered urgently, "this is unnecessary. The tradition is clear. She should be executed for her pack's transgressions." but Kalen seemed not to hear him. His gaze was locked on Elena, studying her with the intensity that made the surrounding wolves shift uncomfortably. She remained perfectly still, years of training teaching her to be invisible, to not draw attention. Yet something in her core was awakening, a dormant power that even she didn't understand. The Blackstone Pack members watched in stunned silence. Alpha Marcus, who had been confident of Elena's execution, now looked uncertain. His daughter Vera's smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of confused fear. "Take her to the pack house," Kalen finally said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Murmurs erupted from both packs. An execution was expected, a swift, brutal punishment that would restore balance and demonstrate strength. But this was something else entirely. Dmitri leaned closer, speaking low enough that only Kalen could hear. "Are you certain? She could be a threat. Her lineage." "I am certain," Kalen interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Elena felt herself being lifted, removed from the cage that had been her prison during the journey. Her body moved automatically, decades of subservience ensuring she didn't resist. But something else was happening beneath the surface. A slow, building awareness that defied her years of suppression. The electric connection between her and Kalen remained, a thread of energy that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. His touch was neither gentle nor rough, but precise, like a predator handling something precious and potentially dangerous. As they prepared to move, the forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Wolves watched. Pack members from both territories stood frozen, and at the center of it all, Kalen and Elena, connected by something neither of them yet understood. The stone fortress of the Northern Ridge Pack loomed against the mountainside, its granite walls smooth and imposing. Elena walked with careful, measured steps, her wrists still raw from the rope bindings. The pack members who escorted her moved with a precision that spoke of military-like discipline, their gazes darting between her and the surrounding territory. Her room was small but immaculately maintained. A narrow bed with crisp white linens, a wooden chair, and a small dresser comprised the furnishings. Compared to the supply closet she'd called home in the Blackstone Pack, this felt like luxury. Clean walls, no mold, no musty smell of forgotten cleaning. Supplies. An elderly woman entered the room without knocking. Her movements were deliberate, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Elena recognized her immediately as the pack healer, Mira. "Sit," Mira commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. Elena complied instantly, years of training making her body respond before her mind could process the instruction. Mira's hands were surprisingly strong as she examined Elena's rope-burned wrists. Her touch was firm but gentle, each movement precise and practiced. "Interesting," Mira murmured, more to herself than to Elena. She leaned closer, her nose almost imperceptibly catching Elena's scent. "You smell wrong." Elena tensed. "Wrong?" The word slipped out before she could stop herself. Mira's eyes, sharp and green despite her age, locked onto Elena. "For a wolf who can't shift, you carry a scent that doesn't match your supposed limitations." No further explanation came. Mira applied a healing salve to Elena's wrists, the cool cream soothing the raw skin. Each touch seemed calculated, as if the healer was examining more than just physical wounds. As night fell, Elena moved to the small window overlooking the pack's central gathering area. Below, Kalen stood on a raised platform, his presence commanding and absolute. Wolves surrounded him, their body language a mixture of tension and submission. "She's a threat," one wolf argued, his voice carrying a hint of challenge. The Blackstone Pack's cast off. "Why are we keeping her?" Kalen's response was immediate. A low growl erupted from deep in his chest, not a human sound, but a pure wolf's warning. The challenging wolf instantly lowered his eyes, shoulders hunching in submission. "Silence," Kalen said. The single word carried more weight than most leaders' entire speeches. The pack fell quiet. Elena watched, fascinated by the dynamic. She'd never seen leadership executed with such precise control. Her own pack had been chaotic, ruled by Alpha Marcus's unpredictable rage. This was different. This was power tempered by control. Mira's earlier comment about her scent lingered in Elena's mind. She knew she was different, marked as defective, unable to shift, treated as less than nothing by her birth pack. But something in Mira's tone suggested there was more to her story. As the night deepened and the pack below gradually dispersed, Elena remained at the window. Her room was warm, her body finally relaxed after days of tension. For the first time in memory, she felt something close to safety. Outside, the mountain night settled around the Northern Ridge pack house, mysterious and silent. The morning light filtered through heavy stone windows, casting long shadows across the Northern Ridge pack house. Elena dressed carefully in the simple clothing provided, a soft gray tunic and dark pants that felt luxuriously clean compared to her previous rags. A pack guard knocked precisely at dawn, his crisp command cutting through the morning silence. "Alpha Kalen requests your presence in his study." The word requests felt more like a command than an invitation. Elena followed the guard through labyrinthine stone corridors. The Northern Ridge Fortress was a maze of granite and shadow, each hallway lined with dark wooden panels and occasional mounted wolf pelts that seemed to watch her passage. The guard stopped before massive oak doors carved with intricate wolf and moon imagery. He knocked once, waited, then pushed the doors open without waiting for a response. Kalen's study was nothing like Elena expected. Contrary to the harsh, militaristic environment of the pack house, this room breathed ancient knowledge. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound texts that looked older than the fortress itself. Massive maps of wolf territories covered one entire wall, marked with complex lines and symbols that suggested decades of territorial negotiations. Kalen stood by a massive oak desk, his back to the entrance. Even from behind, his presence was overwhelming. Broad shoulders encased in a deep charcoal shirt, hands clasped behind his back in a posture of absolute control. "Come in," he said, not turning around. "Close the door." Elena did as instructed, her movements careful and quiet. Years of serving in her birth pack had taught her to be invisible, to move without drawing attention. When Kalen finally turned, his ice-blue eyes seemed to pierce right through her. Something ancient and wild stirred in his gaze, a predatory intelligence that spoke of generations of wolf leadership. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a chair positioned directly across from his desk. Elena sat immediately, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Her survival instincts were finely tuned. Show deference, don't challenge, wait to understand the threat. Kalen didn't sit. Instead, he began pacing, each movement deliberate and controlled. When he spoke, his voice was clinical, almost detached. "Your inability to shift isn't natural," he stated, not a question, a fact. Elena remained silent, her heart beginning to race. How could he know something she'd wondered about her entire life? "A powerful seal was placed on you as an infant," Kalen continued, "deliberately designed to suppress your wolf. But seals decay, and yours is deteriorating." He approached, leaning slightly forward. "Close enough to intimidate, not close enough to touch. When this seal breaks," he said, "you'll become something unprecedented. Or you'll die in agony." The words hung in the air between them, a death sentence or a mysterious transformation. Elena's voice, when she finally spoke, was barely a whisper. "Why are you telling me this?" Kaylin's expression didn't change. Because you have a choice. Submit to my protection and let me help you control what's coming. Or return to your pack and die ignorant and alone. Her choice wasn't really a choice at all. I'll stay, Elena said. What she didn't know, what Kaylin deliberately didn't reveal, was that safely breaking the seal required something far more intimate than simple protection. It would demand a mate bond, something he'd avoided his entire life, but that revelation would come later. For now, Elena had made her decision. The Northern Ridge Pack House kitchen bustled with activity, steam rising from massive copper pots and the rhythmic chopping of vegetables creating a symphony of culinary preparation. Elena moved with quiet efficiency, her hands swift and sure as she sorted herbs from the storage pantry. Rosie, the head cook, a robust woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair and arms muscled from years of cooking for a wolf pack, watched Elena with narrowed eyes. 3 days had passed since the strange servant from the Blackstone pack had arrived, and initial suspicion still simmered among the kitchen staff. "Those rosemary sprigs," Rosie said sharply. "Go with the venison roast. Don't mix them with the thyme." Elena's hands never paused. "Actually," she said softly, "a touch of rosemary with thyme enhances the gamey flavor of venison. My old pack's cook taught me that trick." A moment of silence followed her statement. The other kitchen workers, 2 younger wolves and an older prep cook, stopped their tasks, waiting for Rosie's reaction. Rosie raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Elena nodded, keeping her movements steady. She understood survival meant proving her worth, showing she wasn't a threat. Years of serving in her birth pack had taught her how to navigate hostile environments. "Prove it," Rosie challenged. Without hesitation, Elena selected a small portion of the venison, carefully blending the herbs. When the dish was prepared and tasted, Rosie's stern expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Not bad," she muttered. Throughout the morning, Elena worked without complaint. She scrubbed pots that had been soaking for days, organized the spice shelves, and chopped vegetables with precision. Her hands, once soft from years of indoor servitude, were becoming calloused and strong. Unbeknownst to her, Kaylin watched from the kitchen's entrance. His beta, Dmitri, stood beside him. "She's unusual," Dmitri murmured. "Most wolves brought as tribute would be cowering in a corner." Kaylin said nothing, his ice-blue eyes tracking Elena's movements. There was something intriguing about her quiet determination, her ability to work without drawing attention to herself. By evening, Elena had earned a grudging respect from the kitchen staff. Rosie assigned her to help prepare the main dinner service, a significant promotion from her initial status as an outsider. When dinner was served, Kaylin made an unexpected appearance in the communal dining hall. Typically, he ate alone in his private quarters. Tonight, he chose a table near where Elena sat with the kitchen staff. Their eyes met across the room, a moment of electric tension that made the other, wolves, fall silent. "Join me," Kaylin said. It wasn't a request. Elena rose, her movements controlled. Years of subservience had taught her to obey commands, but something in her posture suggested she was no longer truly submissive. "I see you've made yourself useful in the kitchen," Kaylin said as she sat. A hint of challenge glimmered in her eyes. "I'm not here to be a burden. Most wolves in your position would be demanding protection, special treatment." "I'm not most wolves," Elena replied. Their verbal sparring continued, each statement a carefully placed chess move. The surrounding pack members watched, sensing something brewing between their alpha and the mysterious newcomer. Neither Kaylin nor Elena seemed to notice or care about their audience. For the first time, both felt something beyond mere survival, a spark of intellectual engagement that both frustrated and intrigued them. The meditation chamber was austere, stone walls softened by thick wolf pelts, morning light filtering through narrow windows. Kaylin positioned Elena on a woven mat, his movements precise and controlled. Close your eyes, he instructed. Feel the energy trapped inside you. Don't fight it. Observe. Elena's breath came shallow at first, her body tense with years of learned defensiveness. Kaylin's voice was low, almost hypnotic. Breathe. Let the seal's boundaries become soft. Don't break them, just sense them. His teachings were unlike anything she'd experienced. In her birth pack, her difference had been a weakness. Here, Kaylin treated her sealed power like a delicate instrument waiting to be tuned. Minutes passed. Dust motes danced in the sunlight. Elena's breathing gradually deepened, her shoulders relaxing incrementally. Something inside her, a dormant, silvery presence, began to stir. Kaylin watched carefully, his wolf senses alert. He could feel the energy building, a strange electric current that made the hair on his arms rise. Elena wasn't just suppressing power. She was containing something extraordinary. Suddenly, the meditation chamber transformed. A book slid off a shelf, hovering midair. A brass candle holder lifted, spinning slowly. A ceramic water pitcher began to tremble, its surface rippling without physical contact. Elena, Kaylin's voice cut through her trance, ground yourself. But she was deep in meditation, unaware of the supernatural display happening around her. Objects continued rising, first small, then larger. A heavy wooden chair began to lift, its legs dangling inches above the stone floor. Kaylin moved swiftly. He placed his hands on her shoulders, his body pressing close. Physical contact was the fastest way to interrupt an uncontrolled energy surge. The moment his skin touched hers, something profound happened. The levitating objects crashed to the floor. Elena's eyes snapped open, silver gray and luminous, nothing like a normal wolf's eyes. Their bodies were pressed together, Kaylin's muscular frame holding her still. Her breath came in sharp pants. His hands, strong and calloused, gripped her shoulders. For a moment, neither moved. The mate bond thrummed between them, a living, breathing connection neither wanted to acknowledge. Kaylin's wolf surged forward, recognizing something fundamental in Elena. She felt simultaneously vulnerable and powerful. Dimitri's urgent knock shattered the moment. "Alpha!" he called, bursting through the door. "Scouts report Blackstone wolves near our eastern border." The week following Elena's unexpected display of power became a crucible of transformation. Training with Kaylin revealed layers of her abilities she never knew existed. Each meditation session peeled back another barrier, exposing skills that had been deliberately suppressed by her birth pack. Her empathic abilities emerged first, subtle at first, like a whisper of emotion that brushed against her consciousness. She could sense the pack's emotional landscape, Rosie's maternal warmth in the kitchen, Dimitri's constant underlying tension, the pack warrior's simmering blend of pride and restlessness. But something strange happened whenever Kaylin was near. Her abilities sharpened, becoming almost supernatural in their precision. Where others felt like soft murmurs, Kaylin's emotional landscape was a complex symphony. Layers of control tightly wound around a core of raw, barely contained power. During training sessions, she discovered she could detect lies with uncanny accuracy. A simple touch, a moment of focused concentration, and the truth would bloom in her mind like a vivid painting. Kaylin watched these developments with a mixture of fascination and caution, carefully documenting each new manifestation of her abilities. The pack gathering happened on a crisp autumn evening. Northern Ridge wolves filled the main hall, a massive stone room with high rafters and walls decorated with pack history. Mounted wolf pelts and ancient battle trophies told stories of generations, of strength and survival. Sean, a young wolf with something to prove, had been watching Elena with a combination of suspicion and barely concealed aggression. He was third-generation Northern Ridge, proud and traditional, and Elena's mysterious presence threatened everything he understood about pack dynamics. As Kalen stood addressing the assembled wolves, discussing border patrol rotations and upcoming winter preparations, Sean's tension became unbearable. His emotions radiated like a storm: fear, anger, and a desperate need to prove himself. "Alpha," Sean interrupted, his voice cutting through Kalen's speech. "We need to discuss the outsider." The room went silent. Kalen's eyes, ice blue and dangerous, locked onto Sean. "Speak," he commanded. Sean stepped forward, his posture challenging. "This woman from Blackstone Pack. How do we know she isn't a spy? Why are we protecting someone who can't even shift?" Before Kalen could respond, Elena felt a surge of energy. Her empathic abilities crystallized, revealing a web of Sean's hidden truths. She stepped forward, her movement smooth and controlled. "Interesting accusation," Elena said quietly, her voice carrying through the suddenly still room. "Especially from someone who has been meeting secretly with a wolf from the Silverbrook Pack." Sean's face went pale. She continued, her tone clinical and precise. "3 nights ago, you met at the Northern Creek Crossing. You discussed selling information about our patrol routes. You're afraid of being passed over for a leadership position, and you believe this might earn you favor with another pack." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Sean stood frozen, his lie completely exposed. Kalen watched. A hint of something: pride, surprise, flickering in his eyes. The pack was witnessing something unprecedented. An outsider, a woman they had considered weak, had just publicly dismantled one of their own warriors with nothing more than spoken truth. The power dynamics in the room shifted visibly. Wolves who had been suspicious now looked at Elena with a mixture of wariness and reluctant respect. She hadn't challenged Sean physically. She had defeated him intellectually, revealing his duplicity with surgical precision. Sean, humiliated, could only stand silent. His plan to discredit Elena had spectacularly backfired. Kalen's voice broke the stunned silence. "Anyone else have questions about our guest?" The challenge in his tone was clear. No one spoke. The night was moonless, a thick darkness pressing against the pack house windows. Elena's dreams shifted like smoke, fragmenting and reforming with terrifying clarity. Snow, so much snow, and blood, vivid crimson against pristine white landscapes. Kalen stood in the center of a battlefield, surrounded by wolves with glowing, predatory eyes. His massive wolf form was covered in wounds, silver-blue fur matted with blood, yet he remained standing. Enemies circled him, their snarls echoing like distant thunder. A voice whispered through the vision, ancient and feminine, speaking words Elena couldn't quite understand. Warnings, prophecies, fragments of a destiny not yet written. Her body jerked, a strangled cry escaping her throat. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her hands clutching the bedsheets so tightly her knuckles turned white. The door burst open. Kalen filled the doorway, his presence massive and overwhelming. His wolf was close to the surface, eyes flickering between human and animal, muscles coiled with protective tension. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, sitting on the edge of her bed. "The dream," he said. Not a question. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps. "You were surrounded, bleeding, wolves attacking from all sides." His hand, large, calloused, touched her forehead. The contact sent electricity racing through her skin. Their connection, still new and raw, hummed between them like a live wire. "Prophetic dreams," Kalen murmured. "Lunar wolf, trait. Rare. Dangerous." His proximity was intoxicating. Elena could smell him. Pine forests, winter wind, something primal and untamed. Her body responded instinctively, leaning closer without conscious thought. "Tell me everything," he commanded. As she described the vision, Kalen's expression remained carefully neutral. But beneath that control, Elena could sense his growing concern. Her emerging abilities were unprecedented, and in their world, the unknown was always a threat. When she finished, silence stretched between them. The pack house creaked. Distant wolf howls echoed from the surrounding forest. "These dreams are not to be ignored," Kalen finally said, "but we cannot let fear control us." His hand still rested on her forehead. The touch was both protective and possessive, a gesture that spoke of something deeper than mere strategy. Elena's heart raced. She was acutely aware of how close they were, of the raw energy crackling between them. Her wolf, dormant for so long, stirred with sudden primal awareness. Kalen seemed to sense the shift. His breathing changed, becoming deeper, more dangerous. "We cannot," he whispered, even as he leaned closer. Their lips met. The kiss was not gentle. It was a collision of restrained passion, of two powerful forces finally allowing themselves a moment of vulnerability. Elena's hands found his shoulders, gripping tightly. Kalen's fingers tangled in her hair, holding her in place. For one breathless moment, the world narrowed to just this, their connection, raw and unfiltered. Then Kalen pulled away. The movement was abrupt, almost violent in its suddenness. "This cannot continue," he said, his voice rough. "Mate bonds make alphas weak. I cannot afford weakness." But even as he spoke, Elena could see the internal war raging within him. His wolf demanded what his mind resisted, a complete claiming, a total bond. He stood, turning away. "Rest. We'll discuss the dream's implications in the morning." The door closed behind him with finality. Elena lay back, heart pounding. She was falling for a man, no, a monster, that everyone had warned her about. And strangest of all, she didn't care. The Northern Ridge Pack gathered in the vast clearing beneath the mountain, moonlight painting everything in silver and shadow. Generations of wolves stood in perfect formation, their anticipation a tangible energy that made the air itself feel electric. 2 weeks had transformed Elena. Where she once moved like a timid servant, she now carried herself with quiet confidence. Her training with Kalen had revealed glimpses of the power thrumming beneath her skin, power that seemed to grow stronger with each passing night. Tonight was the full moon ceremony, a sacred ritual older than any living pack member could remember. Traditionally, young wolves would demonstrate their shifting abilities, proving their worth to the pack. But Elena was different. The seal that had suppressed her wolf was visibly more cracking, glowing fractures spreading across her skin like intricate, luminescent spider webs. Kalen stood at the ceremony's center, his massive form radiating authority. His ice-blue eyes tracked Elena's every movement, a mixture of caution and something deeper, a protective instinct he couldn't fully suppress. The pack elders began the ancient chant, their voices a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to make the forest itself breathe. Drums joined, their beat matching the rising moonlight. When the hunt began, something extraordinary happened. While other wolves transformed, their bodies twisting and shifting into powerful lupine forms, Elena remained human, but she was anything but ordinary. As the pack surged forward, she matched their speed, not through traditional wolf strength, but through an otherworldly agility that defied explanation. Her movements were liquid grace. Where wolves bounded, she seemed to flow between shadows. Her human form kept perfect pace with transformed wolves, her legs eating up terrain with supernatural speed. No ordinary human could move like this. No ordinary wolf either. Dimitri, Kalen's beta, watched in stunned silence. The pack elders exchanged meaningful glances. Something unprecedented was happening. Kalen's wolf, massive, dominant, watched Elena with an intensity that made the other wolves instinctively lower their gazes. He could sense it now, could no longer deny what she was becoming. A lunar wolf, a being of legend. Creatures of such rare power that most considered them nothing more than myth. At the hunt's climax, with moonlight bathing the clearing and every pack member watching, Kalen made his move. He approached Elena, not as a predator, but as something else entirely. His voice rang out, clear and commanding. Elena of the Blackstone Line. I, Kalen Frost, Alpha of the Northern Ridge, choose you. The words were more than a declaration. They were a sacred claiming, but not of ownership, of partnership, of even equality. The entire pack held its collective breath. When the mate bond snapped into place, it was like a thunderclap of pure energy. Silver light erupted from Elena's skin, so bright that wolves had to look away. The transformation had begun. The silver light pulsed around Elena like living electricity, her body caught in a strange liminal space between human and wolf. Her fingers elongated, sharp claws emerging, glinting under the moonlight. Her eyes, once a plain brown, now shimmered with an ethereal silver glow that seemed to capture fragments of moonlight itself. But something was wrong. The transformation wouldn't complete. Her body trembled, muscles rippling beneath skin that refused to fully shift. Kalen stepped closer, his wolf's instincts screaming to stabilize her, to complete the bond that would anchor her emerging power. The Northern Ridge Pack erupted in celebration. Drums beat, wolves howled. An alpha finding his Luna was rare, a moment of pure magic that happened perhaps once in a generation. Rosie, the pack's head cook, wiped tears from her eyes. Dimitri stood slightly apart, his expression a mixture of respect and lingering suspicion. But the celebration was short-lived. A wall of darkness emerged from the forest's edge. 50 wolves, massive, disciplined, wearing the distinctive black and silver markings of the Blackstone Pack, materialized like a nightmare. At their center stood Marcus Blackstone, Elena's father, his wolf form massive and menacing. The temperature dropped. Moonlight seemed to dim. Marcus's voice cut through the celebration like a blade. By ancient blood law, I claim my daughter. She is unmated, unbound. Her fate remains mine to decide. Kalen stepped forward, placing himself between Marcus and Elena. His wolf rose to the surface, ice-blue eyes blazing with territorial fury. The girl is under Northern Ridge protection. Your claim is dissolved. A ripple of tension spread through both packs. Pack law was complex, built on centuries of tradition and carefully negotiated boundaries. Every wolf present knew this could escalate from political challenge to full territorial war in moments. Marcus's laugh was cold, devoid of any paternal warmth. Protection? She is my blood, my offspring. No pack, not even the mighty Northern Ridge, can challenge a father's fundamental right. Before Kalen could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, immaculately dressed, radiating wealth and dangerous entitlement. Alpha Victor Red Moon. In his hand, he held a document, yellowed with age but bearing an unmistakable blood seal. Actually, Victor's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. She's already promised. To me? The document caught the moonlight. Elena's infant bloodprint clearly visible, surrounded by intricate legal language that spoke of a contract made before she could even understand its meaning. The scene froze. Wolves, who moments before were celebrating, now stood in perfect, tense stillness. Elena, still caught in her partial transformation, felt the world narrow to this moment. Her father, her potential buyer, the alpha who had claimed her without her knowledge, and Kalen, the only one who had shown her anything resembling compassion. The tribunal convened in a massive stone amphitheater nestled deep within neutral wolf territory. 3 elder alphas, ancient beings whose very presence commanded absolute respect, sat in a raised semicircle. The oldest, Alpha Helene, her silver hair reflecting centuries of wisdom, would preside. Elena stood between Kalen and Marcus, her body still trembling from the incomplete transformation. The silver energy crackling around her skin drew suspicious glances from the assembled wolves. Victor stood to the side, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the wilderness surrounding them. The proceedings began with ritualistic formality. Alpha Helene's voice rang out clear and uncompromising. "Bring forth the evidence of claim." Marcus stepped forward, producing a series of documents. Each page told a horrifying story, a contract signed moments after Elena's birth, her infant blood used to seal a future transaction. Victor's pack had paid an astronomical sum, contingent on Elena's potential as a rare lunar wolf breeder. "My daughter was never meant to be a free wolf," Marcus declared. "She was a commodity from the moment of her birth." Elena's mind reeled. She had always known her father was cruel, but this level of calculation was beyond anything she'd imagined. She was nothing more than a potential breeding asset, her entire existence planned out before she could draw her first breath. The blood contract was ancient and binding. Wolf law respected such agreements with a reverence that bordered on religious devotion. Elena could see the legal language was deliberately crafted, a trap designed decades ago, waiting to spring shut the moment she came of age. Kalen's rage burned like a contained inferno. His wolf pressed against his skin, demanding justice, but wolf law was complex. The tribunal's decision would be based on strict legal precedent, not emotional appeal. Victor produced additional documentation, genetic testing, prophecy scrolls, medical evaluations that confirmed Elena's rare lunar wolf potential. Each document was a nail in her metaphorical coffin, proving her value as a supernatural asset. "The contract is clear," Victor said smoothly. "Signed in blood, witnessed by elder alphas, and paid in full. The female belongs to my pack." Alpha Helene's gaze swept over Elena. "Child, do you understand the nature of this contract?" Before Elena could respond, Marcus began chanting. Ancient magic, the same magic that had sealed her wolf for decades, started to pulse around them. Elena felt an overwhelming compulsion begin to build, her body responding to her birth father's magical command. Her muscles began to move against her will, one step, then another. Kalen roared in fury, but sacred law held him in place. The mate bond between them was emotional, not physically consummated, leaving a critical legal weakness that Marcus was expertly exploiting. Elena's body continued to move, each step bringing her closer to Marcus while Kalen was forced to watch, bound by the very laws meant to protect pack integrity. The tribunal watched in tense silence as the ancient magic worked its terrible purpose. The silver bars of her cell glimmered with an unnatural light, each touch sending waves of searing pain through Elena's skin. Her emerging powers crackled just beneath the surface, fighting against the metal's supernatural restraint. Unlike her previous imprisonment in the Blackstone pack, this cell felt different, more deliberate, more calculated. Marcus entered the chamber with calculated slowness, his boots clicking against the stone floor. Elena noticed how he moved, a predator enjoying his moment of triumph. His eyes gleamed with a cold satisfaction that made her skin crawl. "My dear daughter," he said, the word daughter dripping with mockery, "you've finally become useful." Elena said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was often her most powerful weapon. Her time with Kalen had taught her more than just potential magical resistance. She had learned strategic patience. Marcus continued his monologue, revealing pieces of his intricate plan. "Your connection to the Northern Pack's Alpha will be our greatest weapon. By drawing Kalen into a conflict, we'll systematically destroy their territory's strength. Once you've served your purpose, Victor's contract ensures you'll be sold. Your rare lunar wolf genetics will fetch a price that could fund our pack's expansion for decades." From the shadows, Vera emerged, Elena's sister, whose eyes burned with a toxic mixture of jealousy and hatred. Where Marcus was coldly strategic, Vera was emotionally volatile. "Look at her," Vera sneered, "thinking she's something special now. You're still just a servant, Elena. A tool to be used and discarded. Elena's gaze remained steady. The young woman who had left the Northern Ridge 3 weeks ago was fundamentally different from the one sitting in this cell. Kaylin's training, the pack's respect, and her emerging powers had transformed her in ways her family couldn't comprehend. While Marcus and Vera spoke, Elena subtly tested the silver bars. Her fingers traced microscopic variations in the metal, searching for structural weaknesses. Each touch sent pain racing through her arms, but she maintained a neutral expression, revealing nothing. Her emerging empathic abilities, another gift from her time with Kaylin, allowed her to sense the emotional undercurrents. Marcus felt triumphant but slightly uncertain. Vera radiated pure hatred mixed with a desperate need for validation. The Northern Pack will never accept your plan, Elena finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. Marcus laughed, harsh sound that echoed through the cell. They already have. The Blood Law Tribunal has effectively handed you to us. Kaylin cannot interfere without violating sacred pack regulations. Vera moved closer to the cell, her face pressed near the silver bars. How does it feel to be completely powerless again? Elena met her sister's gaze. For the first time, there was no fear in her expression, only a quiet, dangerous strength that made Vera unconsciously take a step backward. In the Northern Ridge pack house, Kaylin paced the war room, his frustration radiating like a physical force. Dmitri stood nearby, ancient law books spread across the massive oak table, his fingers tracing lines of text with growing intensity. There has to be something, Kaylin growled, his wolf pushing against his human restraint. The bond with Elena felt like a razor-thin thread, alive but fragile. Dmitri looked up, his expression serious. The blood law is complicated. Marcus has leveraged every possible legal angle. He pointed to a dusty tome. But there might be a loophole in the ancestral challenge protocols. Just then, Mira entered the room. The elderly healer moved with a grace that belied her age, her eyes holding secrets older than the pack itself. She carried a leather-bound journal, its edges worn and pages yellowed. "The challenge clause," she said softly, interrupting their discussion. "It's Elena's only hope." Kaylin turned, his ice-blue eyes sharp with focus. "Explain." Mira spread the journal on the table. Her weathered fingers traced an intricate diagram of pack hierarchy and ancient wolf law. Blood law allows a direct descendant to challenge the pack alpha for leadership. If Elena wins, all of Marcus's claims, the contract with Victor, her sealed status, become void. Dmitri frowned. "But she can't shift. The challenge requires wolf form." "Precisely," Mira said. Her gaze met Kaylin's, a silent understanding passing between them. "Which is why you'll need to do something extraordinary." The room fell silent. Kaylin understood immediately what she was suggesting. A ritual so dangerous it could kill them both. Completing their mate bond across distance, using their partial connection to feed Elena the strength she would need to transform. "It will require blood magic," Dmitri warned, "the oldest and most dangerous kind." Kaylin's jaw clenched. He had spent his entire life avoiding emotional vulnerability, building walls around himself and his pack. Now, everything depended on breaking those very walls. "Prepare the ritual space," he commanded. "We'll need mountain ash, moonstone, and blood from both of us." As Dmitri and Mira began gathering materials, Kaylin stripped off his shirt. Scars from past battles crisscrossed his muscular frame, testament to years of protecting his pack. But this battle would be fought differently. The ritual space was prepared with precise ancient markings. Moonlight filtered through high windows, casting silver shadows that seemed to pulse with supernatural energy. Mira's hands moved with practiced efficiency, creating a complex geometric pattern on the stone floor. "The bond between you is already forming," she said to Kaylin, "but to complete it across such distance, The pain will be immense. Kalen didn't flinch. Pain was a language he understood fluently. Dmitri approached with a silver chalice. Your blood must be freely given. No coercion, no hesitation. Each drop of blood carried intention. Kalen's first droplet sizzled against the chalice, releasing a faint steam that carried whispers of ancient magic. His wolf churned inside him, part protector, part warrior, entirely focused on reaching Elena. The ritual would require him to channel not just physical strength, but the deepest parts of his spirit. To reach Elena, to give her the power to challenge her father, to break free. The night pressed heavy against Elena's silver-barred cell, a suffocating darkness broken only by the occasional flicker of torchlight. Her skin tingled with an electricity that felt foreign and powerful. Something was changing. Suddenly, warmth flooded her veins, Kalen's presence surging through their incomplete bond. It was like liquid fire racing through her blood, burning away the years of submission and fear. Each pulse carried fragments of his strength, his determination. Marcus had been monitoring her, expecting compliance. Get ready, he barked to the assembled Blackstone warriors. You'll use her connection to breach Northern Ridge's defenses. Elena watched through hooded eyes, her newfound empathic abilities stretching out like invisible tendrils. She could taste their emotions now, their uncertainty, their deep-seated fear beneath the bravado. These weren't confident warriors. They were frightened men following a tyrant. As they prepared to march, Elena began her silent work. To each warrior's mind, she subtly planted seeds of doubt. To one, a whisper of his mother's disappointment. To another, a sudden remembrance of a comrade killed needlessly in a previous skirmish. Each suggestion was delicate, almost imperceptible, but devastating. The warriors' steps became less synchronized. Muttered conversations replaced confident silence. Marcus, walking ahead, didn't notice the growing tension. Dawn approached, painting the forest in silver and gray. Elena could feel the power building within her, Kalen's ritual transforming her from the inside. Her skin seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light, though Marcus remained oblivious. As they reached the forest's edge overlooking Northern Ridge territory, Elena knew her moment had come. The warriors around her tensed, ready for battle, unaware of the storm about to break. With a clarity that surprised even herself, Elena stepped forward. I challenge you, she said to Marcus, her voice carrying an authority she'd never possessed before, for leadership of the Blackstone pack. Marcus turned, his laugh a cruel bark. You? Challenge me? But Elena continued, her words precise and powerful. She spoke the ancient challenge words, words that bound both packs to witness, that invoked laws older than any living wolf could remember. The warriors around her went completely still. The challenge circle formed with ritualistic precision, a sacred space marked by ancient wolf law. Wolves from Blackstone, Northern Ridge, and a neutral pack assembled, their collective breath held in anticipation. The rising sun painted the clearing in harsh golden light, casting long shadows across the ground. Marcus stood at one edge of the circle, his presence radiating pure malevolence. His massive black wolf towered over most pack members, muscles rippling beneath a coat as dark as midnight. Scars from countless battles marked his hide, testament to his brutal reign. Elena remained motionless at the opposite side. Unlike the trembling servant she'd been weeks ago, she now stood with quiet confidence. Her body hummed with an energy that felt both foreign and intrinsic, Kalen's strength intertwining with her own through their emerging bond. The pack elders who would judge the challenge watched silently. Their eyes flickered between Elena and Marcus, sensing something unprecedented was about to unfold. Traditionally, such challenges were brutal affairs of physical dominance. But Elena was anything but traditional. Her skin began to shimmer, not with a wolf's typical transformation, but with an ethereal silver light that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. The light originated from beneath her skin, like liquid moonlight trying to break free from its human container. Marcus's wolf growled, a sound so deep it seemed to vibrate the very ground. He didn't wait for formal declarations. With shocking speed, he lunged at Elena, expecting her to dodge or cower. But Elena didn't move. Instead, as Marcus's massive jaws descended, she raised her bare hands. The wolves, watching, held their collective breath, certain she was about to be torn apart. Her hands looked impossibly small against the enormous black wolf's snarling maw. The moment Marcus's teeth should have ripped into her flesh, something extraordinary happened. Elena's hands caught his jaws. Not just stopped them. Caught them. Held them. Silver light erupted from her skin in a blinding explosion, forcing every wolf in the circle to shield their eyes. The sensation was like standing at the heart of a lightning strike, raw, powerful, transformative. The seal that had contained her power for 23 years didn't merely crack, it shattered completely. Waves of energy radiated outward, creating a dome of pure, primal power that made even the most experienced wolves instinctively lower their heads in submission. The light was so intense, it seemed to bleach the colors from the surrounding forest, turning everything to shades of silver and white. When the wolves could finally look again, they would see what happened next. As the blinding silver light began to recede, a collective gasp rippled through the assembled wolves. Where Elena had stood moments before, a creature beyond comprehension now occupied the challenge circle. Her wolf form defied everything they knew about werewolf transformation. She was larger than any alpha wolf, at least twice the size of Marcus's massive black form. But wolf seemed too simple a description. Her fur wasn't fur at all, but something more like liquid moonlight, constantly shifting between solid and ethereal states. One moment she appeared substantial, the next almost transparent, her form rippling like mist caught in moonbeams. Her eyes were most unnerving. They held no typical wolf coloration. Instead, they were pure silver, deep as eternity, with pupils that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Intelligence radiated from those eyes, something far beyond animal instinct. This was a being of pure supernatural power. Marcus, momentarily stunned, recovered quickly. His survival instincts kicked in, and he lunged forward with a snarl that would have terrified any normal opponent. His massive black wolf form was a weapon honed through decades of brutal pack leadership. But something extraordinary happened. His teeth, aimed to rip and tear, simply passed through Elena's form like she was made of mist. Where solid muscle and bone should have been met, there was only shifting light and shadow. Marcus stumbled, his attack dissolving before it could land. Elena wasn't defenseless. The moment Marcus passed through her misty form, she solidified with impossible speed. Her silver paw, more like a living blade of moonlight than a traditional wolf limb, struck with surgical precision. The fight was brutal, but impossibly brief. Each time Marcus attacked, his strikes dissolved against her ethereal form. When she counterattacked, her movements were calculated, powerful. She didn't rely on brute strength, but on a supernatural precision that made her movements seem almost prescient. With a final, devastating strike, Elena pinned Marcus, not with raw physical force, but with a power that seemed to come from something deeper than muscle. A cosmic, primal energy that demanded submission. Her silver eyes locked with Marcus's, and in that moment, every wolf watching understood something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a challenge for pack leadership. This was a fundamental shift in their understanding of werewolf nature. Marcus had two choices: submit or die. His growl of defiance died in his throat as Elena's gaze bore into him. The weight of her power was absolute, transcending physical strength. It was the power of justice, of liberation, of a force long suppressed finally breaking free. Slowly, painfully, Marcus lowered his head. The submission was complete. As Marcus submitted, a new threat emerged from the shadows. Victor Redmoon, his expensive suit pristine against the wild forest backdrop, stepped forward with a contingent of heavily muscled warriors. His eyes burned with a mixture of rage and calculated greed. "This changes nothing," Victor announced, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "The blood contract is still valid. Elena is my property." The word property hung in the air like a challenge. Elena turned, her silvery wolf form slowly solidifying into a more human-like shape, neither fully wolf nor fully human, but something transcendent. Where other wolves might have trembled, she stood calm, unnervingly composed. As Victor's warriors began to surge forward, Elena raised one luminescent hand. The very air seemed to crystallize, creating an invisible barrier that stopped the warriors mid-stride. Some crashed into the barrier, others were simply suspended, their muscles straining against an unseen force. The ground beneath Elena's feet began to tremble, not with aggression, but with a deep, resonant power that spoke of something ancient and immovable. Each step she took created ripples of energy, making the earth pulse with her heartbeat. Victor's confidence wavered for just a moment, but only a moment. "I paid good money for you," he snarled. "Those papers are legally binding. You're nothing but a commodity, and I intend to collect my investment." Elena's response was neither anger nor fear. Instead, her voice carried a terrible clarity that seemed to come from somewhere beyond human understanding. "You have two choices," she said, each word dropping like a stone into still water. "Void all claims and leave peacefully, or face the consequences of your actions." The wolves around her, from both Blackstone and Northern Ridge packs, watched in stunned silence. Even Kaelin, typically a force of pure dominance, seemed transfixed by Elena's transformation. Victor, driven by wounded pride and a lifetime of never being denied, made his fatal mistake. He lunged forward, a silver knife materializing in his hand, a weapon designed to cut through supernatural defenses. But Elena didn't move to dodge. She didn't even seem to defend herself. The moment Victor's hand crossed the invisible barrier, something extraordinary happened. His attack seemed to slow, as if moving through thick honey. His muscles strained, but progress became impossible. Then Elena touched him. Not with violence, not with a killing blow, but with something far more devastating. Her hand, still glowing with that impossible silver light, pressed against Victor's chest. Where other wolves might have torn him apart, she did something far more profound. She reached into the very essence of his wolf nature, and she stripped it away. The transformation was horrifying in its clinical precision. Victor's muscular werewolf form began to dissolve, muscles shrinking, supernatural strength bleeding away like water through cupped hands. Within moments, where a powerful alpha had stood, only a shocked, ordinary human remained. No blood, no violence, just pure, absolute removal of his wolf essence. Victor collapsed to his knees, his warriors frozen in shock. He was no longer an alpha, no longer a wolf, just a man, stripped of everything that had defined his power and identity. A living warning. The aftermath of Victor's defeat left a profound silence hanging over the gathered wolves. Elena stood at the center of the clearing, her silver form gradually settling into a more recognizable human shape. Kaelin moved closer, not to control, but to support. A subtle shift in his typical leadership approach. Elena's gaze swept across the assembled pack members, her eyes holding a depth that made even the most hardened warriors look away. The Blackstone pack stood in stunned disarray, their former structure demolished in moments. Her father, Marcus, lay defeated and humiliated, the weight of his decades of manipulation crushed beneath her newfound power. Vera, her sister, trembled at the edge of the clearing. Where she once sneered with superiority. Now only fear remained. Elena could sense her emotions as clearly as breathing, a cocktail of terror, shame, and a desperate hope for mercy. "We cannot continue as we have," Elena spoke, her voice carrying across the assembled wolves. It wasn't a command, but a statement of inevitable change. Two packs weakened by internal conflict serve no one. Kalen stepped forward, his presence supporting her words without overshadowing them. This was a moment of shared leadership, something unprecedented in wolf pack history. The plan she proposed was radical. Instead of punishing the entire Blackstone pack or allowing them to splinter, Elena suggested a complete merger. Northern Ridge and Blackstone territories would become a single unified pack. Those who could adapt would stay. Those who couldn't would be given safe passage to find new homes. "This isn't about revenge," she explained, her empathic abilities allowing her to project calm into the agitated crowd. "This is about survival, about creating something stronger than what came before." Practical considerations followed. The pack's leadership structure would be shared between Elena and Kalen, with a council representing both original territories. Former Blackstone wolves would be integrated carefully, their skills assessed, their past behaviors evaluated. Vera approached Elena, falling to her knees, a gesture of complete submission. The emotions radiating from her were complex: genuine terror, a desperate hope for forgiveness, and underlying resentment. "Please," Vera whispered, "I want to prove myself." Elena's response was measured. "You'll work in the kitchens under Rosie, learn discipline, learn service, prove your worth through actions, not words." It was a punishment that carried opportunity, a chance for redemption without complete banishment. Rosie, hearing her name, nodded firmly. The head cook of Northern Ridge was known for her ability to transform raw potential into reliable skill. Marcus, meanwhile, faced a different fate. Stripped of his alpha status, he would be exiled as a lone wolf, the most devastating punishment in their culture. No pack protection, no territory, just survival based on his own limited abilities. The merger wouldn't be easy. Generations of conflict, territorial disputes, and deep-seated mistrust couldn't be erased overnight. But Elena's unique abilities provided unprecedented tools for healing. Her empathic skills allowed her to detect underlying tensions before they could erupt into conflict. Her truth-sensing capabilities meant manipulations would be immediately exposed, and her protective instincts extended not just to her mate or her immediate pack, but to every wolf now under her care. Kalen watched her with a mixture of pride and fascination. The woman he'd first encountered as a broken servant had transformed into something extraordinary, a leader who understood power wasn't about domination, but about creating sustainable community. As the first stage of integration began, wolves from both packs started the careful process of finding their new places. Some would resist, some would leave, but many would see this as an opportunity for something unprecedented, a truly united pack, born from the ashes of generations of conflict. The full moon hung like a silver promise above the Northern Ridge territory, casting its ethereal light across the gathered pack. Elena stood at the center of the clearing, her transformation complete and breathtaking. Where once she had been a broken servant, now she radiated power, a lunar wolf in her truest form. Kalen stood beside her, his massive wolf form a deep midnight black that contrasted with her shimmering silver coat. Their mate bond thrummed between them, a connection so profound it silenced the entire pack. This wasn't just a mating ceremony. This was a declaration of a new era. The pack elders watched in reverent silence. Mira, the ancient healer, wiped a tear from her eye. Dimitri stood at attention, his respect for Kalen now tempered with a deep loyalty to their new Luna. The merged pack, Former Blackstone and Northern Ridge wolves waited with collective breath held. Elena's wolf form was unlike anything they had ever seen. Her fur wasn't just silver. It shifted like liquid moonlight, sometimes solid, sometimes ethereal. Her eyes held in depth that spoke of ancient knowledge, of power carefully controlled. When she moved, it was with a grace that made even the most seasoned warriors pause. Kalen's wolf nudged her gently, a private moment of connection amid the formal ceremony. Their bond went beyond the physical. It was a meeting of souls who had chosen each other, despite every obstacle. The pack howled in unison, marking their acceptance. The sound echoed through the mountain forests, a proclamation of unity and strength. Elena and Kalen would lead together, not as traditional Alpha and Luna, but as true partners. The howls faded. Kalen turned to Elena. A single look passed between them, and then they were running. The hunt began. Their wolves moved as one across the terrain, leaping over fallen logs, racing through moonlit clearings. The rest of the pack followed, a living wave of fur and muscle and primal energy. But Elena and Kalen remained at the front, their connection allowing them to anticipate each other's movements with impossible precision. For the first time, Elena felt completely free. No seal restrained her. No fear limited her potential. Her wolf was pure joy, pure power, pure possibility. The hunt was both ritual and celebration. They chased deer through misty forests, not to kill, but to run, to prove their strength, to honor the ancient traditions while creating something entirely new. When they finally returned to their private chambers, the first hints of dawn were touching the horizon. They shifted back to human form, breathless and exhilarated, beneath a sky still studded with stars. Kalen pulled Elena close. "I knew from the moment I first touched you," he said softly, "that you were my salvation. I just didn't expect to be yours in return." Elena traced the line of his jaw, remembering the journey that had brought them here, from the moment she'd been dragged in a cage to enemy territory, to this, true partnership, true power, true love. "My greatest power," she whispered, "isn't what I can do. It's what I choose to become." They lay together under the fading stars, planning a future that would change everything. A sanctuary for wolves like her, those with extraordinary gifts who had been hidden, suppressed, rejected. A place where potential could be nurtured instead of feared. The first light of morning found them still wrapped in each other's arms, the united pack sleeping peacefully around them. A new day, a new beginning.